privilege and honor to give the word today. I like how many of us came. And thank you guys for worshiping with us. It's always a pleasure to be able to lead worship with y'all. I was told I was going to preach maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I was trying to think about a topic on what I should talk about and what God is wanting for you guys to hear. And after talking to my wife and her saying, no, I can't talk about money or finances in this small group because it's not a Dave Ramsey thing, that I have to talk about other stuff. But she mentioned stewardship. And I started thinking and praying on things that we steward and how we can steward things better than we do now. And it led me into this little rabbit hole in prayer and like the essential things that need to be stewarded in our lives. And one thing, or the 4 things that I want to talk about is 1, time, 2, gifts, 3, influence, and 4, spiritual growth. And if you guys don't know the definition of stewardship, it's the job of supervising or taking care of something. And that's the title of this message, by the way, Managing Stewardship. So let's start with time. Time. It's very important that you know that God is outside of time because He's the creator of time. So there's these moments where you might think, oh, well, I'll manage my schedule this way, and you end up failing because you miss to include like your prayer time. You miss to include you're reading your word throughout the day, or even the little things like taking breaks to just stop and just breathe and let God remember that God's taken over. And it's always good to go to God for guidance. In Colossians 1:16 through 17, it says, "For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. He is before all things, and in Him all things are held together." So I don't know how many of you guys came to the first bridge session that we had. Pastor Patricia actually spoke, and she was talking about the different levels, almost like in decades of your life. And she was specifically talking about, most of us are in our 20s or creeping up into our 20s. And she was talking about how that age really sets up our life. And it really does. I mean, I'm 24 now, and I remember, and I know that the habits I'm building up right now are probably going to follow me for the rest of my life. So, it's very important to be able to get healthy habits now. Like, for example, it's way easier to get into the habit of working out in your teens to 20s than it is like in your 50s. Because if you're saying you're too busy for it now, you're never going to do it. Just give up on it. So it's very important that you manage this time of your life. And I actually suggest that you even go to the point of tracking your hours. And that's something that I've been doing. And it's been very tedious, to be honest, because it's like but you do realize that a lot of time goes away into things that don't really matter. And for instance, one thing that I've made a priority where it's almost like an appointment, because nobody's going to not go to a doctor's appointment, is making an appointment with God in the morning. And it's like, okay, God, I'm meeting you here, and it's not going to be planned. And what it looks like for me is reading my word, worshiping, whether that be me playing or hearing it, and then also reading my word as well, because that's very important. But that's something I really encourage. And something that I was researching also while doing this is that the first 15 minutes of your day, psychologically, it sets up your day completely. So there's a big difference from you waking up and getting on your phone and just doing scrolling and just doing whatnot on your phone, compared to you waking up and obviously getting ready, not being all sluggish in the morning, but getting into your word, or and I'm not necessarily talking about like cold plunges and things of that sort. Not that that's bad, and that's great for your mental state, but really setting up your spirit for the day, because there's a lot that you don't know that's hidden, that is just going to come at you, and the devil really tries to get you at your lowest moments. And even when you're having a great day, I mean, you never know what arrows the enemy's trying to throw at you. So just to wrap up time, the tips that I have for it is, one, don't be too busy for God. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, I think most of us work here, if not all. Let's say you're on your lunch break and you get told to, or I'm sorry, and you get told in the spirit, hey, go pray for this person. But in your head, you're like, oh, well, I only got like 30 minutes and I already used up like 28 minutes of that, so I don't really have time to pray for them. But it's almost selfish, because who are you to dictate what not to obey and what to obey from God? It's not like a you pick and choose thing. And something I've realized is that when God calls us for those moments, you never know if you're the only person set aside for that person. And so it's like a little domino effect thing. Welcome, guys. It's like a little domino effect thing where you might be the only person that shows that guy who Jesus is, what he's about. They get saved, and you never know if with their saving and their salvation, that they are able to save multitudes because of you. And so it's very important that you delegate that. And then 2, don't be consumed with time management or you'll burn out. So like I said about the hourly thing for me, yes, I've been tracking it and I've been trying to stick somewhat to a schedule, but you also don't want to fall into perfectionism, where at that point you'll be so burdened and tired out that every 2 minutes of your day isn't going to plan, and then you just crash and burn. Like, it just does not work. And then number 3, do fill your time with healthy and productive things, like I was saying with the habits of a lifetime. Number 2, wanted to go into gifts. So similar to time, God didn't just create all gifts. He gave all of us. He gave you again, you, and you gifts. And the thing is that they're like a fingerprint. They're all unique. They're all different to each and every one of us. And I wanted to ask this: does everybody here know what their gift is? Like something that comes supernaturally to you? Not supernaturally, but naturally to you. Like, I know he plays the guitar really well. Drums, music. What about you? American Dolls.
Organization.
Organization. Yeah, DJ, you got one?
I don't know.
Creativity.
Yeah, sure.
I'd say. Alex, he has a very good attention for detail. What about you? Yeah. Did you raise your hand? I thought I saw you raise your hand. But anyways, in James 1:17 it says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. And the reason why I ask if you know your gift is because almost always your gift is aligned with the calling that God has over your life. Like, for example, I have the gift of entrepreneurship, and I didn't realize that I've always carried it, but ever since a young age, I've always put actions to my thoughts, and I've learned to not be as impulsive with it, where, if I think it, like the poop scooping thing, I just do it immediately. So I have some crazy ideas sometimes, and I just act on it. And there's actually one in particular that cracks me and my stepdad up, and it's there was the one time where I was just watching this video, and it was talking about, and I was fascinated about knowledge, and still kind of am at this age. I think I was like 10 or 12. And it was basically, the video was saying, okay, if you want to become a genius like Albert Einstein, you need to start tracking your sleep schedule. So I was like, okay, let's see what this video has to say. And in the video, it was like, okay, so this is what you gotta do. You gotta go to sleep at 10, and you gotta wake up at 12 p.m., or 12 a.m., so you only get 2 hours of sleep, and then you wake up periodically and just take 20-minute power naps. And then you stay up at 4 a.m. So I was just sitting in my bed at 4 a.m. with my eyes just bloodshot red, because I only slept like 2.5 hours. And my stepdad comes in, and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm becoming a genius. So it's things like that, where I've learned to manage it, so I don't do it as often. And but it's very important to use your gift. And I really try for entrepreneurship, if you want me to put it in a nutshell, the way I use it is I try to lead by example. And, with entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things and ways that you can cut corners, and not just so in business, but just really in every area of your life. You can always try to jump a step, but it's always essential that you don't leapfrog everything, because those moments that you're probably jumping over are probably those building blocks that are leveling you up. Because if you keep leapfrogging everything and you get here, you'll just tumble, because you can't support imagine like a Jenga tower, but it's like missing a bunch of blocks. So at some point it's going to fall over, especially if there's a bunch of wind. So in 1 Peter 4:10 it says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace. So again, what is natural to you, and how can I use this to serve others? And if you don't know your gift, I highly recommend that you pray about it too, and just ask God, like, hey, what can you use me for that I'm good at? And it tends to be something that you love doing, so that's a plus. But yeah, so there's some examples, like if you are in music, and you're trying to show it for the glory of God, you can lead people you can lead worship and bring people deeper into His presence. If you're in media, you can showcase the glory of God to those who can't easily access it. If you're in business, you can fund the kingdom. If you're in physical skilled labor, you can do things with a spirit of excellence and lead by example. And that's one that a lot of people fail to realize, that you have a magnifier right on you. And it's like everybody's, especially if people know that you're a Christian. I don't know if you guys just say, hey, I'm a Jesus lover. I do sometimes. But there's people that even try to challenge you. Like me personally, at my workplace, you can ask Anna, I get challenged all the time. And I work in construction, unfortunately. So it's always perverted jokes with them. And so he gets it. And so I've come to the point where, I don't even bat an eye at them anymore, because they want to entertain the thought of me stumbling that way. And in Matthew 5:16 it says, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Let's go into the third, influence. Influence, I think, is one of the most powerful ones, because you can either build somebody or completely destroy somebody. And similar to the topic I was talking about earlier, with you maybe being that only person that will be there for them, for you can say their salvation. You never know if the one advice that you give them will break them or build them up. In 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. And in Proverbs 27:17, it says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. So you have to ask yourself, am I the influencer, or am I the influenced? And there's a really easy way to distinct it. If you're the influencer, it's people respect you, they hear you, they keep you in mind, they listen, and they do. But if you're the influenced, then you respect them, you hear them, you keep them in mind, you listen, and you do. And so being influenced isn't a bad thing if we're comparing it to good and bad, you can say. Like, for example, if you're influenced by a music artist, which one is it? Is it Bad Bunny, or is it Maverick City? Or is it your teachers or your mentors? And like, what are their philosophies? Is it your coach? Is it your peers? Or is it your Bible? Or is it even ChatGPT? So I know some of you guys probably talk to ChatGPT way too much. And I'm preaching to the choir here. So just dumb it down to, are you the shaper, or are you the one that's getting shaped? And are you getting shaped in a good way? I've had the pleasure of having a mentor that sharpens me quite often, and it does tend to be tough love sometimes. And but I love it because, you know, if you know you're with your real friends if they tell you things straight up. Like if you're in sin, or just something simple, if you are around that friend and they just always cuss, like, bring it out to them. The worst they can do is not like you anymore. And big whoop, you can find new friends. They can find, so it's this thing of you have to sometimes separate yourself, and if you don't separate yourself, I mean, you can be the light to them as well, but they might step away, and that's going to have to be okay with you, because that's part of being the influencer. Because sometimes there's times where you have to separate things from yourself. And like me personally, I've cut out old friends, video games, because I think it's a waste of time sometimes. Explicit music, and even family members, if you want me to be honest with you guys. Just because it was really killing my spirit. And you know, I don't want to go in detail with family members, but you know, I've noticed that it can be really hard for others to kind of just push people away that have literally always been there in your life. And you know, it's easy for me. That's it, thank you. No, but I have seen and related and felt with people that find it hard, because it can be somebody like your sister, your brother. And I'm not saying, don't think I'm telling you, hey, you have to stop talking to them forever. I'm just saying that if you're around this person and they bring out the worst in you, then you might have to set boundaries, and you might have to either spend less time with them or, you know, do something, because you can't, and because it is hard sometimes. And I mean, psychologically, you'll be like the 5 closest people in your circle, and so it's super important that you watch who's in your inner circle, because again, they can build you or they can break you, and the same vice versa. In Matthew 6:24, it says, "No one can serve 2 masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." And this would have been perfect for the money topic that I could have talked about, but whatever. And so, obviously, this can work with other things, not just money, this verse. And so, like, you might think, well, how can music, something like that, you know, affect my relationship with God? And it's simple. What goes in your ears will go in your heart and will come out of your mouth. So if you can't worship with the same tongue that you're just blurting out death with. And like there's some music out there that literally talks about murder, talks about sex, talks about drugs, and it's all things that you're letting fill your spirit up. And so you're bound to pretty much blurt it out at some point. So if you don't cuss, because you're a good and faithful servant, but you listen to Bad Bunny all the time, then you're going to be bound to cuss, especially if you're around the friends that bring it out the worst to you. So it's very important to know that your tongue has a power of life and death, and do not take that subtly. I mean, it's very important that you remember that. But once you become the influence, you have the power to change the trajectory of somebody's life, quite literally. And it starts with seeds. It really does. And you know, whether they come to you for advice or you just give it to them, they'll either listen or they'll walk away, and that's that. But you did your part in putting that seed in them, because at some point, if they know they're doing something wrong, but they want to keep living worldly, but enough people are telling them, and maybe you were the last straw, then you know it's game. But like, for example, if somebody comes up to you, and let's say it's like a close friend or a close relative, and says, "Hey, I'm struggling with so-and-so," either you can say, "Dang, that's crazy," or you can say, "Hey, well, how can I help you?" If it's more specific, like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this addiction," then especially if you've gone through it yourself, you can say, "Hey, I've been there. I know exactly what you feel like. You know, I'd love to be your accountability partner." And so stuff like that, because, you know, if enough people say, "Dang, that's crazy," then they'll probably just stay that way. And so a couple suggestions for influence is, don't underestimate who's watching you. example I gave earlier. You're literally on a magnifying glass, and people are watching you, and I don't just mean other Christian brothers and sisters that are trying to make sure you stay on course. I mean literally, if you claim to be a believer, and everybody, I mean, the name of Jesus and the word is heard all over. It'll be very weird if somebody doesn't know the name of Jesus or the terminology Christian, but if you claim to be that, then they're going to make sure that they watch you, because if they do want to do good, if they do want to be a Jesus follower, they're going to do everything that you do, because you might be the only example that they have. And then 2, live in a way that matches what you say. So you cannot be this one person on Snapchat and this other person in the church and this other person at work and this other person at school. I mean, you have to always be the same person, or else if you're in that stage, then you're probably doing it to be liked by others. And that's the third point, is don't compromise your standards to be liked. A lot of times, again, with the family or friends, we tend to try to, entertain them and make them happy by being like them. But I mean, it's just not worth it. I mean, I'd rather not be liked, and Jesus says that he was hated first, so don't worry about it. Like, Jesus knows exactly what you feel like, and I went through a point personally where I felt like I had no friends. I felt like I had nobody to talk to, and I just gave it to God. But yeah, it's very important that you set a serious time with God, and it's not terrible. Not the devotion part in the car maybe, but it's not terrible to give some time to God throughout your day as well. And so what that looks like is like fasting, praying in the car, listening to the Bible, or speaking in tongues if you're able to. But the important part is to start. And a good example of this is David. David literally had the desire to chase after the Lord's heart. And he is a perfect example of somebody that had so many ups and downs in his life where, whenever he did wrong, he always went back to God. He always, the righteous man falls 7 times but gets back up 77 times. Type beat. But he's a perfect example. But from what you can see, and from what I was reading from the research I did for this message, is that every time that he slipped up, and he slipped up bad, murder, adultery, all these things, he strayed away slightly from God, or he wasn't in the position that God told him to be. Like Bathsheba is a perfect example, because he was supposed to actually be at war with everybody else, but he was in the, whatever you call it, palace, and he saw what he was not supposed to see, and he acted on it. And he was not in the position that God told him to be at, and so that caused temptation and furthermore. But with that being said, for spiritual growth, I just recommend putting it as top priority over everything that you do. Like, I get you have somewhere to be. I get that you've been planning this thing for so long, but make it a priority, because it's a relationship. I mean, you can't expect to have a friendship with just one person talking, and as God just reaching out to you, and you just like look at him and you maybe nod, and that's it. But that wraps up my message. I did want us to do something a little bit different. In place of doing an altar, because we're such a small group, I thought it would be best if we could get into small discussion groups. Until we can put that up in the slide. But it's just one question, or 2 questions in one. It's what's one area God has trusted you with, and how can the person next to you support or pray for you in stewarding it well? And so after you're done with your groups of 3 to 4 preferably, you're dismissed and you can head to the cafe where we have some food for you. But preferably get with somebody that you don't know. Thank you.